Huh?
She fixed it for you?
She fixed me.
And they had a problem with half their plant.
And we're on the air. Now calling to order the January 26, 2023 meeting of the Mashpee Sewer Commission. I'd like to ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please observe a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to open up to public discussion to our vast audience. Seeing none, I've been requested by one of our fellow commissioners to have a little bit of time to bring up some items that were not on the agenda. Mr. Lyons?
Okay. One of the problems with the whole sewer business in the town and communication is it's such a large, complex issue. It gets sidetracked with all the details in each of the sub-issues. I'd like to give us all a nice, simple way to understand what we're doing and what we've got to get done. First of all, the state is going to step in and say, you have to take X pounds of nitrogen out of your system. Well, that X has been estimated, or I think Ray has indicated, they said 75% of what we're dumping in there now is going to have to come out. So the quick and easy way to understand how much we're dumping is the Mashpee Water Department pumps 580 million gallons a year to 10,000 customers. Now, if you just applied 30 milligrams of nitrogen per liter to that amount of water, which is what you have if it all comes through Title V systems or their equivalent systems, it'd be 145,000 pounds of nitrogen a year is going into the estuaries today. Getting rid of 75% of it means we have to take out 109,000 pounds a year of nitrogen. In order to do that, we have got to process water that is at 30 and take it down to 3 milligrams to the volume of 1,300,000 gallons a day. So somewhere over the next 15, 20 years, this town has to be in the position of processing over 1 million gallons of water a day, down to the value of 3 milligrams of nitrogen per liter. Our present site, the transfer station, has 4 processing lines in it, each of them 120,000 gallons a day. That's only 480,000 gallons a day. Okay? So you can see that it's not a lot. It's about 10% of what we have to do over time. So that's the size and the scale of it. Now, as part of that, and I'd like to ask the Sewer Commission to write a note to Ray that asks him to request from our design engineer group a physical layout, a blueprint that shows where the plant is going, where what do you call it when you put it back in the ground?
Recharge beds?
The recharge beds are, and what space they are reserving for future expansion. One blueprint with those 3 items on it will be critical to our moving forward because it will generate the discussions necessary to meet requirements that we may or may not actually have in the transfer station. So I'd like that Ray get that document from the engineers. That what?
Could you please just restate the 3 items that you feel are important to meet the goals? You just stated them.
The physical layout plan, right?
The requested items?
Yes.
Yeah.
The actual layout, a blueprint showing on the layout, the present building, the present recycle beds, and the reserved area for expansion within that lot. So that we're all understanding what's going on. What happened was we lost our handle on it about a year ago with the engineers because of all the changes that were going on and the new this and the new that and the new politicians. We got to get back to basics. We need that drawing so that we understand it and we can help them finance whatever's necessary to expand that facility. Now, Ray is working in our behalf on other alternatives as well, and he can bring that up and discuss it. But the second thing that I wanted to talk about was we have some low-hanging fruit. And it would be, for example, sea mist and wind chime. Also Deer Crossing, actually. Deer Crossing, wind chime, sea mist. These are condominium units that are all plumbed. And they can give us a very large volume of water to process at a very low cost for us to put the infrastructure in the ground, because all we'll have to do is put in a pump station and the contract main back to the transfer station. That would give us a big jump on the amount of liquid that we have to process at the lowest cost per unit. If we were to include Southport in that type of endeavor, we'd have about 1,200 units in condominiums that we could process very quickly at a relatively low cost of infrastructure. So we've got to have, Ray is also looking at that stuff now, but I wanted to make sure the members of the commission were aware of some of these options.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
May I make a request, please? Joe, you were quoting some numbers that you had on some small pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Would you be able to make those available to the rest of the committee members?
Well, I hope they're going to be distributed now in the
Okay.
meeting notes. Did you take down the numbers that I was reading?
Yeah, some of them, but
I'll review it with you, and we'll get it into the meeting notes. We need it as.
Oh, yeah, I'll be sure to get it either off this or
Yeah.
the television thing.
And you
So
just
we can-
send me a draft of it, and I'll patch
Okay.
it up and send it back to you.
I think if we're going to publish that, part of it should be the source of those numbers, where they came from, if we're going to put these numbers out there.
Well, right, they come from the Water District, which will be the basis of all of our work.
Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that the Water District is pumping water to various residences, but that does not include people that have a well. So,
What I want to say to you is I can't pick at the details. You can pick at the details all you want, but we have to, as a group, as a commission, look at the major issues and help the town and help Ray guide our actions in the future. Now, there's nothing you or I can personally do about somebody's well, so I don't think it belongs on the table.
my concern is that do we have an idea of how many properties are serviced by a well versus town water?
I will answer that again in a negative way. I'm going to say there's 10,000 customers out there on the town water system. That's what we have to worry about, because that's what the state's going to measure us against, because there's no other source of data.
Okay.
Once you go into the fog and look for somebody's backyard well, we're in a fog. We can't make business decisions that way. We need sound basis, and that's the 580 million gallons a year.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes,
580 million or 580,000?
580 million gallons. You can look it up on their documents. It's their published, what do you call it, annual report.
Madam Vice Chair?
Yes, I have a question for you, Joe. You mentioned Deer Crossing and Seamist and Southport. They're all over the place geographically. One is in Seamist, one is on Great Neck Road, and one is off of Route 28. Does the location of these make a difference in terms of our overall goal?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you address that, please?
Well, Seamist and Windchime are right down the street, next to each other.
On Great Neck
That's
Road?
Yeah, that's the easiest place to pop off some volume. And they're also most critical because they're the closest to the river where we're going to be taking samples, and we want to know if we're cleaning the river up. That will also drive our future efforts.
Yes, I agree, yeah.
Okay, so those two are the hot ones. Now, Deer Crossing just happens to be another substantial unit. It's 166 units at Deer Crossing. And then Southport is another issue that they have already upgraded their system, but their system is still nowhere near 3 milligrams, which we'll probably have to get to. So they will be faced with another change over there where they would have to come in and put in the micronite filters and get it down to 3, or they'll have to tie into the town system. I'd prefer to see them tie into the town because then we have more customers to run our plant with, and our plant with higher volumes runs more efficiently.
And one other question, so these are not right now currently in Phase 1?
That's correct.
Okay.
Which of these already have treatment plants?
All of them. But quote-unquote treatment plant merely means they are conforming with whatever they have to Title V's quality. That's their only conformance.
Other questions? All right, Mr. Lyons, thank you very much. We'll certainly have some ongoing discussion on each of the points you made. And if Mr. Rajak wants to discuss the deliverables you've asked for, he's more than welcome to do so. Otherwise, we can move on to the approval of the minutes.
I have a question about the minutes before we get started.
Absolutely.
Be- Let me find it. There was, I don't know if we need to have it as an item on the agenda, but the point was made that the FAQs and some of the other information was going to be on the website for the sewer commission, and my question was going to be, how long does it take to get them on the website?
They're posted now.
Not on the sewer website. It's not on the sewer commission.
Website, yes, they are.
I just looked at them before I came, and I didn't
I
see
just
them. I saw the
printed
old ones.
I printed it off the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Could
No,
just be,
I looked, but maybe I'll have to,
Look under project information, right?
so it's not under FAQs?
It's under project information and then FAQs.
Okay. Thank you.
very good. Entertain a motion unless there's any other questions to approve the
I
minutes.
move to accept the. Second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Joe, you have to abstain.
Oh, I
because you
can't,
weren't
you're
at
right.
the last meeting.
I'll
Thank you.
send it. Okay.
Very well. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Very well. Moving on to new business. Discussion of limiting the amount of time the public comments can have to 3 minutes per person. This was raised by our vice chair, and the precedent is set by the select board, as I understand, that any one speaker, unless otherwise arranged ahead of time and on the agenda, should have 3 minutes for commentary.
I'd be glad to speak to it, if you don't mind. I don't want to keep people from speaking. That was not the intent. The intent was that we need to have people think about what they're going to say and be focused, and if they have a time limit, I think that will do that. So we have a precedent that's set for 3 minutes for the select board, And we can think about whether we want to follow that as 3 minutes or whether we'd like to do a different time. But I think limiting discussion from public comment would be good.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Sorry, Al.
My question was, what was normal and customary with other, but if we've already, you're saying the select board has a three. Does any other commission have one?
We didn't have one on conservation, but by God, I wished we did many a nights. Just like the vice chair says, it does force you to articulate what you're going to say, and then if you need more time than that, you should be an official item on the agenda. That way, anyone else who has business or needs to hear or wants to support you or speak against what you have to say should be able to have notice of that hearing and be there to participate.
Well, they could also contribute in written form.
I was going to say the same thing, to have points ready to go in writing, because some discussions are really worthwhile hearing. I'd like to hear all the points, yes,
Yes.
but 20 minutes is a big difference from 3.
Yes.
So,
May I propose we limit it to 5?
I was just going to say the same.
And limit it to 5 and ask if they go over, they'd be prepared to submit something in writing.
Any- Sounds reasonable to me.
Well, just the way you word that is going to be important.
yeah.
You can say 3 minutes or 5 minutes, it doesn't matter what you say, you're saying something. And just, then you should say, or previously agreed to time limit and documentation. So that then you could say, you know, I need it for 15 minutes, and you say, we have to come up with the documentation.
I think the easy answer to that is just either 5-minute limitation for public participation, or they have to request to be on the agenda to make a presentation. Sound good?
There you go.
Sounds good. I
Seconded.
make the motion.
Motion, second. Any other discussion? Voting. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
I'm sorry, Chad, did you second that?
I did not.
Who
We
seconded
had,
it?
I did.
I did.
Who made the motion?
He did.
Who did?
I'm sorry, Susan. It didn't matter.
I'll
We,
make the motion.
Okay,
And you said so.
whatever.
We're good.
okay. I just need to make sure I have it right here.
all right, moving on to the second bullet point, agenda item, excuse me, policy formulation to replace the standard operating procedures number 2. We all have a copy of the language, and I'd like to invite Mr. Rajak to the podium to discuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. At least it is afternoon, that's nice, yes. What this is the commission, at least under the commission's website, had what was known as SOP number 2, which was for grinder pumps. That was the actual title. What it did is authorize the acquisition of a grinder pump to be provided by the town for any time that the design called for a specific application thereof, all right? So grinder pump is a nickname. It's actually a low-pressure pump. It's a self-contained unit. It's a tank that has a pump held within it. Usually has anywhere between 1 and 3 days capacity, depending on what the actual volumes are that it's dealing with. And it's usually used for 2 primary instances. One, where you have to overcome an elevation difference at the street level, at the house level. A secondary application is when it's considered an alternative for an otherwise deep sewer that would be installed in a high groundwater table. The cost of dewatering on a major construction project like that is massive, okay? So it has a couple different applications. But from a SOP versus policy perspective, the policy is more specific and more definitive as to when it's going to be applicable. Okay, so will only be in those instances where by design, for whatever the reason may be, that a specific location is required to have that pump system, okay? Yes.
You put the word town design in, and that way it avoids other future issues.
Yes, yes. And if I'm not mistaken, that is, yeah, the town's design engineer, when it's called for by the design engineer. Then the town will provide that pump component system free of charge.
Questions for Mr. Rajek?
I have one. I agree with the policy, I mean, there's nothing to agree or disagree about, but the statement of it is that there'd be one pump per property. My question for you would be, what if there are two properties that were close together? Would they then share a pump, or how would that work?
Well, generally speaking, in any sewer system, you don't tie two buildings into one system. And the reason being, when it comes to sewer systems, one of the bigger problems that you usually have is grease in the lines. So therefore, that has potential to clog up any sewer line, all right? It can clog up septic systems. It can clog up pressure pump systems. So the point being, if you have two homes tied into the same sewer service, whether it's a pump or a gravity line, that gravity line starts backing up and you have a problem. Whose fault is it, and who's going to pay for it, all right? So a house or residential property is an independent unit, if you will. It gets sold that way so that it's fully self-sufficient with respect to water and/or wastewater components. So I'm just giving you a generalization overall there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions?
No, I would accept it as written, with the exception of saying a town specified or town designed.
I believe that language is included. The second paragraph,
Implied in the next paragraph.
where a low-pressure grinder pump system is specified for a single-family residential property in the original sewer system's design, or is otherwise recommended for installation at any such property by the town's design engineer.
Well, you're gonna have someone standing on the side of the road saying, I want a pump. And we're gonna have someone at the town saying, you don't need one, we're not gonna do it. Now you avoid the whole issue by saying where the town decides. And that's the way you make the issue. You make the opponent. And the word here would be, pump systems are deemed necessary by Mashpee due to elevation differences. By Mashpee, they have the authority. And then in the next paragraph, you say what within the town is the authority. That was my recommendation. You don't want to avoid the definition being the town makes the decision.
So you would put that in the first line of the second paragraph, where a low-pressure grinder pump system is specified by the town, comma.
Or in the last line of the first paragraph. It doesn't matter, as long as it's the town is the one that makes the decision.
Any feedback?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any feedback on that comment?
Well, in the policy itself, where it does specify town's design engineer, all right, that's going to be, as a rule, the engineering firm that it will make that determination. And I think the good thing about that is for any future designs on this, it means that each one would definitely have to be looked at independently and individually with respect to whether or not it would be deemed necessary.
Right.
From a design perspective, they would be able to make that decision.
Thank you. Other questions?
Should we give him
Do- do-
authority to
do
make
we-
the motion that we accept it as?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Could we just clarify SOP as meaning standard operating policy or standard operating procedure?
Standard operating procedure.
So this is a policy, and we would remove SOP number 2 from the website?
Right, but there wouldn't be an SOP number.
Okay, so there'd be only
Policy
SOP
number.
number 1 at this point?
Policy number 1 was the betterment policy.
Okay, so,
This is policy 2.
but SOP number 1 is still there.
Technically,
I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah.
Maybe we should stay instead of SOP policy.
Yeah, and that's what it's titled. It is titled as policy number 2.
Okay. Matt, I think this is
It's,
just one example of things that need to be cleared up on the website, by the way.
It's not very meaningful because it doesn't say sewer commission policy or sewer policy.
Right.
If you say sewer policy number 2, you're okay.
We can do that, too.
Okay.
I can add
Let's
that.
call it sewer policy.
I can add that.
number 2. And you go back to the other one, the SOP 1, you better bring that into us because we never approved it.
Right.
And we're supposed to have the authority to approve it.
And then I can remove the others.
I actually looked that up, and it was looked at whether it was voted on or not. It was from the November meeting, and the SOP number 1 has to do with the collection system.
Yeah.
So there are two, we have to decide whether that's going to stay as SOP 1, and then this becomes policy number 2, whatever.
I think the website probably needs some cleanup in a number of ways.
That's all we're doing.
Maybe that's our next project after this FAC is,
We need to
now that that's
standardize
completed.
everything.
It needs to be standardized and updated.
Yes.
I'll put that on the agenda for next meeting to discuss.
Because there was a recommendation at the time that this was discussed, that these standard operating procedures be somehow incorporated into the rules of regulation, and the rules and regulations, but they weren't. So that's why it sort of fell through the cracks, I think.
Understood.
Okay. But definitely
They should be
time for
added to the
discussion.
rules and regulations, that's a fine thing. And that's where they belong, they do not belong called SOP 1 and SOP 2.
Just taking some notes. All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve the language as written with the, addendum made by Mr. Lyons.
You're looking for a move?
Yes.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. All in favor?
Just a question before we go.
Yes, of course.
We're going to call it policy number 2. Just
Sewer Commission Policy Number 2.
And it would be attached to the sewer rules and regulations file. That's where it belongs, where you'll find it. You can't just have things hanging out unconnected.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Agenda item number 3, Sea Oaks Betterment Hearing Update.
Blank. Database 7, HD base 7, no signal. Off, there you go.
That's a first. It was actually the plug. Try that one again.
It was the plug you reached for, that's a
Okay, what the commission can expect is to get this on a monthly basis in this format, and there's a very specific reason for that I'll get into as we go through it. So this is really just covering the project areas and components up till the end of December. At the end of any given month, it usually takes about a week and a half in order to get all of the project information funneled through the engineering firms and the contractors, and then be able to get it to you. So these presentations would be on your second meeting of the month. That allows sufficient time in order to be accurate in the present preparation of it. So, you had your groundbreaking on December 8th. This was a picture I took, and there's a couple of them that I have in here. I thought it was really a great day and a great ceremony, marking what I would consider to be a watershed event, meaning the launching of Phase 1. So here we have Al Toll from the Sewer Commission, Tom Fadala, former town planner, and this is going from the left to the right. Tom Fadala, town planner, former town planner and former Sewer Commission member. Dave Whedon, chair of the Select Board. Michaela Colombo, who is the newest member of the Select Board. Phyllis Sprout, who is Sewer Commission member. Joe Lyons, Sewer Commission member. And Meredith Harris, vice chairman of the Sewer Commission. So I thought it was a good day, actually, with the sunshine and everything else. Now, behind you, you can see that is the site for the wastewater resource recovery facility. You see that the site has already been cleared, and I'll be getting into some of the construction details as we go through. This one is in here because this was taken just after the actual groundbreaking, but as you can see, Meredith over here has something to say. Okay, I don't know what it was, I couldn't hear it, but she was into it because she's got her arm up and she was explaining something. And then, of course, on the right over here, we have the town manager, Rodney Collins, who was in attendance that day as well. This is a project area map, north and south, as well as the treatment facility itself. So running right down just about the middle here is Route 28, which separates Contract 2 from Contract 3. So I'll start with the northern segment here on Contract 2. The green lines indicate gravity mains yet to be installed. Yellow lines represent gravity main that has already been installed. And blue lines represent force main or pressure pipe. So here on the northern section, we have Carlton from Ashers all the way up to the end. That main is in. It was a deep main. It was over 15 feet deep. Some of it was 15-inch, some of it was 12-inch, but that took a fair amount of time just due to the depth of the main. Then we also have this yellow line going right here is Swain. The main's already been installed on Swain along with all service connections. And currently, this area here, where it's outlined in red, is where construction is happening today. That is on Sewell Drive. And then after the fact, when they get this done, then they have to do Drew and they have to do Butler up here. For the beginning of next month, meaning later next week, they'll be starting this right here, which is Sea Oaks. Now, Sea Oaks, the entrance is on Route 28, which is actually right out here. However, the main is not coming off of 28. The main is coming off right there. Then on the southern section, all the way down in the south, normally when you do projects like this, you pick one direction and work toward the other. So in this case, the logical assumption would be to start on the southern end. So down here you have Simon Narrows, and you have Mashpee Neck Road. So the contract's going to be proceeding up Mashpee Neck Road after they get Simon Narrows done. They're currently working on Simon Narrows. This is not all of Simon Narrows. This is only about 1,000 feet. So it stops at number 225 here. This is one of the lift station locations right there. And then this main will start going up Mashpee Neck Road. Then they'll be coming back and starting the adjacent side streets. In short order, meaning probably in March, up here on Route 28, and that's in this area here where Summerwood is. This right here is a lift station area there, but these mains would have to be put in up on Route 28. Okay, and that's supposed to happen around March. The signed announcement for the project, which covers all three contracts. You have the Water Resource Recovery Facility, Contract 1, and then Contract 2 is Collection System North, Contract 3, Collection System South. So all of the entities involved in this are represented on this sign. You can see that it informs the public of the total cost right here, $53,960,000 You have Robert Auer, Environmental Partners, Mass DEP, Environmental Protection Agency, Weston and Sampson, who is the OPM on Water Resource Recovery Facility. GHD was design engineer for all three and serves as the project administrator for the plant. And then Waterline Industries is the company that's physically doing the plant.
Where is that going, that sign?
I'm going to show you right here.
I can't see. Where is it?
I'm going to get to it for you, Joe.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so this is an overhead aerial view of the area for the north. So right at the beginning here on the bottom, this is the Public Works area that comes off Meeting House. Then you have the solar array, which is up over the old landfill. You have the transfer station as it appears today. And then this right here is the site where the plant is going. And right over to the right of that on Carlton, this is Carlton right here, and you see that little red arrow? That's where the sign is. Okay, it comes off Carlton Avenue.
On the entrance drive into the?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the project started on Carlton, and they worked in the vicinity of the plant and then started to move north. For the most part, it was a 12-inch main on Carlton, but there's a section from the plant going down to Asher's that was 15-inch. They put in the connection for the plant, a connection for Asher's Apartments, and I'll be getting into that in a minute too. Connection was put in off of Carlton for Sea Oaks. The 8-inch main on Swain is already in, as well as the service connections on Swain. Some of the materials and equipment for the site. Here you have a large track hoe that is installing main and manholes. And right there, that little piece of yellow you see is a guy down in the trench, but these are some deep trenches. They were over 15 feet. This is a set of manholes that was sitting on Asher's and will be installed. And this is 12-inch SDR main. SDR stands for Standard Dimension Ratio, and it's a little bit different structurally than what most people are familiar with, which is Schedule 40 PVC. PVC stands for polyvinyl chloride. PVC, however, is a very rigid type of pipe. This pipe has a bit more flexibility, so it's more forgiving when it's in a difficult environment. And it also has greater strength properties on that. But this is the pipe that we're using for the project. And then, these are also some of the other materials. So on the top picture, they're installing a preformed manhole. These are manufactured and they're custom manufactured for all the manholes on this project. And they could be in multiple sections, 1, 2, or 3. The middle one is called a chimney. So these are concrete structures that sit over a main when it's very deep in order to make a structurally integral connection with a sewer lateral, right? Because when they get that deep, it becomes very difficult for maintaining the integrity of the lateral connection. In the old days, they actually used to pour concrete on all these. Now they can actually manufacture it. On the bottom down here, you see some of the materials that are being stored. This area here is an Eversource area right off of Orchard. So we have access and permission to be able to store materials on that site. These are just a couple of photos to show you how deep it can be, but these are the guys down in the trench, and it's a shame that that picture doesn't really convey the actual depth. On the right, they're installing a manhole, and right in this area here, they have preformed rubber inserts that go into the manhole to make it a watertight connection. Mashpee Neck was just getting started when I put this together, so there really wasn't much to show with respect to Mashpee Neck. On the left, you can see that they are repaving the trench after they started putting in the main. Then on the right is testing a manhole for water tightness they're doing that as they go instead of waiting till the end of the project, which is actually really very beneficial for us and them. This is just to try to show a little bit about how a service connection actually goes in. This is a trench box over on this side and this side. You see a little bit of green pipe down here. That's the service line that's coming off of the main. Then you have a white fitting here. That's a TY, so it allows the contractor to connect to the other side of where that green pipe is, and it allows a riser to come up because that's going to be a clean out for that particular property. What a clean out does, this riser gets installed on the top of that TY, comes up to the surface. This is showing it above the surface. They cut it off, make it flush with the surface, but it does two things, three actually. One, usually it's visible, meaning that when they're all done with that service connection, you'll see where that cap is. So it tells you where the line is. That's one thing. Another, it allows access to the pipe. So if anything did happen and it did clog up, you would be able to get a snake in there, right? Be able to clean the line. And third, it's the line of demarcation, so it's installed at the property line between a house and town property. I mentioned before about lift stations, so I just wanted to show you one, what it actually looks like. This lift station here was one that I had done in Falmouth. You try to make it aesthetically correct with a kind of Cape Cod-y type of feel, so it's not something that's bulky and obtrusive. But I also wanted to explain a lift station. This is the wet well. That is why they call it a lift station. It's a big hole in the ground. And these tanks over here is where that lift station actually is. So it's not something that rises above the ground, it's all below ground. And there are pumps down there that will literally lift the wastewater up and then push it on its way to another gravity main and or to a force main going to the plant. Ash's apartment, this is the biggest single user on the entire project. They have 56 one-bedroom units in there. I think the design flow for that facility was in the 6,000 to 8,000 gallon a day range, and that is directly across, it's on the southern side of Sea Oaks and directly across from where the plant is being built. And it's managed by the Mashpee Housing Authority. These slides here, and there's going to be 6 of them, are really very important for you. This is how I convey to you how your project is going. And you can actually see it as it's happening. So you start out with the original construction contract, $27,905,000. This is for the wastewater resource recovery facility contract. The adjusted value was $29,502,000. And that's because down at the bottom, you see we added change orders. That was for the additional tankage. So the actual adjusted contract value is now higher than the original value by over $2 million. So then you have $840,000 is how much has been paid so far on the contract. On the left-hand side, it says completed as of December, 2.9%. There's a couple different ways that you can use a percentage on a contract. You can use it by percentage of time, meaning how much time has elapsed versus how much is remaining in the contract, or percentage of value. And I choose percentage of value. Why? Percentage of time is meaningless on this. What you care about is the value. And this is where it becomes important with respect to change orders and contracts overall. So what I want to explain is, and I've seen this happen on contracts, there's 2 definitions I'm going to give you here. There's under budget and within budget. You have values for what the contract was originally, values for how it's going to be adjusted, and values for what's actually paid out. So I can stand up here, look you straight in the eye, and go all the way up to the end of a project financially and say, this is a $29 million project, so I can say when you get to $28,999,000, I can still say to you with a straight face, it's under budget, but it's only half done. I've seen that happen to projects, big projects, believe it or not. So what I'm giving you is going to be whether this project is within the budget or not. Is it where it needs to be at a given point in time? And I'll go over that a little bit more on the next slide. So this started, has 790 days to completion. The NTP stands for Notice to Proceed. That's the town's, yes,
The $2 million additional was for tanks 31, 32, 41, 42.
all of them.
So all of the tankage sitting in front of this installation is there for all 4 streams eventually.
All of them, yes,
And that's going in the initial stage,
right now,
pouring, yeah, when they
Yes.
start pouring.
yes. So notice proceed is the official start date that the town gives a contractor, okay? It's a very legal date. That's when the clock starts ticking, okay, because there's only so many days they have to complete the project, in this case, 790. So we have 701 days remaining from that notice to proceed. Final completion is supposed to be December 1st, startup October 2nd. Startup is actually going to be, at least in my opinion, probably sometime in the summertime of 2024, not that far into the fall of October. But nonetheless, there's a reason for that, in that whenever we make a payment to a contractor, they submit a payment, we retain 5% in the form of retainage. It's a $29 million project. 5% over the course of a project is a lot of money. They want to get their money back because we're holding on to it. When they hit a point called substantial completion, it means when you have beneficial use of whatever it is you bought. So when that plant actually can start up and show that it can do what it says it's going to do, that's when they've achieved substantial completion. And at that point, that's where the town releases the retainage. So they get a very large lump sum check. So it's to their benefit to try to get to that as quickly as possible. And then I'll be showing you potential change orders as you see on the bottom. Sorry, it took me just a while to explain that one. Now the rest of them will go a little bit quicker. Okay? So this chart will become important for you. I've got 3 values up there. You have the original budget in blue, 27.92. The adjusted budget, which incorporates the change orders, all right, which means it basically a legally changed budget value. And then you have the actual expenditure. So in this case, it's $840,000 has been expended so far. What's really important for you, those lines should not diverge materially. If they do, there's a problem. So in trying to keep a project on track financially and time-wise, that's what this does. When you start to see, if you were to start to see a divergence, it means that there is a problem.
Are you giving this presentation to the selectmen as well?
I can, yes,
Was it planned to give it to the selectmen?
I can. It's planned for you.
They need to know, I mean, you know,
Sure.
and it seems to be an appropriate process.
Well, and I think that's a good idea.
Let's
in
keep
that-
them involved as much as we can, because we may need a few Uzis.
Good idea.
Yeah.
So on the Collection System North project, this is the smallest of the 3, $5,024,198. The adjusted value is the same, only because we didn't have any kind of changes to it yet. As far as completed, it's at a 13% level, already paid out $662,000. This one, it being the smallest of the 3 projects, had the least amount of time allocated to it for completion, 679 days. There's 590 days remaining from the notice to proceed. Final completion's anticipated in August of 2024. In my opinion, it's going to be done before that, as well as main completion by July. There are no potential change orders at this time. This is, once again, different graph to try to show you as far as these lines go. And up here, you can't really see the blue line because the red line's over it, because the values are identical at this point. But they will change when change orders come in. And then you see the actual value here, and there already is some level of divergence between the lines, but that's because this is where the system startup was, all right? So at the outset of a contract like this, they'll be ordering a lot more materials than they can bill for those materials at that time.
Well, that variation there can either be positive because they're ahead of schedule,
Yes. And you're right, yes,
negative because they're way behind schedule and they're
Right.
struggling with overtime on Sundays.
yeah. If it keeps going that way, it's a problem.
Yeah.
All right, Collection System South, original contract was $9,806,000. The adjusted value was the same because there weren't any changes to it. It's 1.3% complete as of the end of December because they're really just getting started on this project down here. Has the same start time clock as far as the Water Resource Recovery Facility at 790 days, 701 remaining. Final completion is expected the same time as the plant, which is December 1st, and the main completion is expected by November 1st. This is the cash flow for that one, and as you can see right now, there's not much to show. It was the last portion of the project to get started, so they really are in the mobilization phase now.
Do these cash flow numbers mean the town has actually paid the contractors or not?
Yes,
Okay. It's paid out, payouts,
yes,
POs, yeah.
yeah, actual payouts. So upcoming, we're already through January for the most part, so this deals with February and March. At the plant, they'll be working on process tanks, which means they're going to be digging some big holes in order to put in the foundations, the tanks, and get in the underground piping. On Contract North, they'll be doing the services on Carlton. The main's in, but the services have to be installed. The Sewell main is going in, and the Sewell services will be coming behind that. Sea Oaks main starts next week. And then the Drew main and the Butler main will follow that. Asher's main is not started yet on Asher's Path completely. On the southern section, Simon's Narrows, I already mentioned, that main only goes down Simon's Narrows 1,000 feet. Then there's the Mashpee Neck Road main, and it is a constriction. We're maintaining a one-lane traffic flow there, so it hasn't been too bad, and hopefully it will not be. The big thing here, though, is in March, on or about March 15th is where we're trying to get this started on Route 28, to get the Route 28 mains out of the way. Now, in theory, normally the state has that time frame from April to May. We're trying to get into it a little bit early in order to be able to actually complete all the work that needs to happen there before the summer season. So we're looking for an exception on that.
Two quickies. One, on the Route 28, are we going to be able to do it off the pavement?
No.
Okay. Second question was, under the excavations for the process tanks, I thought they were going to leave this off, not pour cement until this spring. That was verbalized to me by somebody.
No,
Are they
they're,
going to go ahead and put the footings in now?
yes,
Awesome.
yes. For SRF, state revolving fund, we got $54 million with respect to a state loan, all right? They didn't approve the interest, however, at 0% until January of this year. Okay, so now the town, meaning the town treasurer, has signed the agreements with the state. The draft IUP, or intended use plan, for the next coming year's funding for projects was released in December, I think on the 16th. Mashpee is on that list. I had reported to you previously that we got the request in August to come up with the $12 million request for being able to complete the other things on the contracts. The final IUP list is supposed to be released in January. We're near the end of January, and as of yesterday, I haven't seen it. So still waiting on that. And then this would have to go to a town meeting article in order to get approval for funding. But at least we're in the ballpark. So Mashpee River, and I'm going to go through this to try to get to a happy time. So this was a boat tour that Ashley was kind enough. Ashley Fisher is the Director of Natural Resources. She's in the bottom right picture there, along with Bobby, the harbor master, and John, who was doing samples for the state. But they were kind enough to take me out on the Mashpee River in that area down there to take a look at some things and have a nice tour. So the picture on the left here was muck that was stirred up on the bottom. And as you can see, Ashley put a boat hook into the bottom area there, and the muck stuck to the boat hook, and then she put it on her hand. She's got what I consider to be a pretty unique word for that she calls it mayonnaise. Never heard of it, but it's certainly appropriate for what it is. The bottom line is, in a natural environment, in a river system like this, you're supposed to have a sandy bottom, okay? It is not supposed to be filled with muck like this. So this is part of really what you're trying to accomplish across the board here. So this is just a couple other pictures. Now, this wasn't even 2 months ago that these were taken. So on the left, you can see how dark the water is, and of course, that's stirring up the black muck because it's all shallow there. And on the right-hand side over here, you cannot see the bottom, all right? It's really not. These are stones right in here, and you can barely see them, and it's less than a foot of water on top of it, okay? So it's not supposed to be like that. The clarity should be much better. This one impressed me. And one person here knows what that is, okay? And I had to ask him permission to put this one on here. Mr. Lyons took this photo, and I love sunsets myself, but quite frankly, it doesn't get any better than that. So I thank you for allowing me, Joe.
That's Great River. That's the river on the east side of Wacoit.
Yep. But it was a beautiful, really beautiful shot. Okay, this is the happy moment here, in that, looking at the Mashpee River there, it looks pretty on the surface, but it's got a lot of problems underneath. So I wanted to show you real quick a project that was undertaken between Mashpee and Falmouth. Not that we were the lead, the Falmouth Rod and Gun Club was the lead. But nonetheless, I had worked on this with the Rod and Gun Club and other entities when I was director in Falmouth in order to get this project funded. So their project was $3 million. August 21, it was done. It involved Mashpee and Falmouth and others. They removed an old earthen dam, did a culvert replacement on the Carrot Shop Road, replaced the failed fish ladder, and the goal was to take the former Farley and Garner cranberry bogs and restore them to their natural habitat. And in part of that, they installed 4 new freshwater ponds. And the purpose was restoration of brook trout and the American eel. Up on the right here, this was the culvert for the Childs River under Carrot Shop Road. So you can see that was pretty much shot. This was the new culvert that was going in, took a crane to lift that into place, and that is the new culvert right in the middle, right there. And then these are the wing abutments for that new structure. Don't expect anybody to read this, but I highlighted Mashpee and Falmouth as part of the contributors on this, and you can see the list was long. So this was Farley Bog then, and that's Farley Bog now. And this was Garner Bog then, and that's Garner Bog now. This was the culvert then, and that's the culvert now. And you can see the river flowing through there, all right? And that is Carrot Shop Road. And this was a problem. Yeah, okay, it's still going to be a problem. So I'm going to go to this other one. But hold on just a sec. It's a full feature film. It's actually all of 30 seconds long. But this is that project after it was done. As I play this at the very beginning on the upper left of the screen, you'll be able to see, oh, I gotta get that off there first. Yeah, you'll be able to, hold on.
That new culvert looks a lot like the Hoover Dam.
Sorry?
It is Hoover.
They must have been shot northern Mashpee.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's a West Mashpee, over there. There's something wrong with that presentation, it's not.
This was supposed to run as part of the slide presentation, and it didn't. But it was the point that I was trying to get to. And I think it clearly shows what the benefit of something like this is. But on the upper left of the screen, when I start this, you'll see that culvert, and pay particular attention to the bottom.
Well, if you look carefully, you'll find Franny Smith out there. He's been working at that for 30 years, and I guess a few of the other fellows at the Sportsman's Club there in Falmouth. And they did it all on their own without money originally.
So I guess my point is, I'm not easily impressed, and I was very impressed with that. I think it's a really great example of what can happen when people put their mind to it. It's not easy to get all those agencies and entities playing in the sandbox at the same time, all right? But they did it well. For a $3 million project, I think it was a super job in the end. So just bringing it up as an example, okay? And that was it.
Ray, I have a question for you. How long did it take them to do the project for Child's River? And how long did it take to then see the results of the clean water?
Well, the project was completed in the mid of 2021. The film clip was latter 2022. And the overall time frame, they started, approaching the issue and stuff, 2015, I believe it was. But it actually was complete by 2021.
That $3 million and what they, with the new bridge and so forth, was the polish on what about a dozen guys did for the last 30 years on their own time with their own money.
Yes.
Okay? So that project was not completed by that $3 million. Not at all. It had nothing to do with the success. But what they did, because they got the public money to put in the new bridge, everybody could see the bridge, and the $3 million project has saved the river. No. No, it was done by a bunch of people at the Sportsman's Club in Falmouth.
Yeah.
The only one I know personally is Fran Smith.
Yeah.
And you could perhaps give credit to some of the other individuals.
Yeah, Gary Anderson was one of the ones that spearheaded it, on behalf of Rod and Gun Club and everything. But I thought it was a truly great initiative that most people weren't even aware of.
I was the conservation chair during much of the lead up and during the construction, and the amount of updates they gave us, the continued progress reports, and just their organizational skills were really impressive. The Falmouth Rod and Gun Club really set a great precedent for environmental stewardship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But thank you.
I just had a couple of other questions. I'm sorry that you had to sit down with that. Were there any, I know the project, it's early, but were there any supply chain issues in being able to get equipment or supplies or anything?
Not yet, but
anything yet.
I can tell you that on some of the items, especially for the plant, we're ordering now because the lead times are extraordinarily long.
Okay. And then the only other question I had is that when you presented the story about the sign, and that the signage was going to go up on Carlton, was there any feedback from the residents in that area?
Yes, there were. We did have comments from a couple of residents who, quite frankly, weren't enthused about it.
It's actually installed?
Yes, yes.
That's too bad.
And, but at the same time, I think that some of it might have been a misunderstanding with respect to, as to what the sign is trying to convey. It is not a banner for any of the contractors involved. It's informational in nature to show this is your project, Town of Mashpee, $54 million funded by EPA, DEP. This is your design engineering firm. These are the contractors that are doing it. These were the contracts that were issued. It's really an informational sign to say that your money's being spent well.
I think that there had been some feedback early on in the project for people in the Carlton area that just didn't want the project there.
Right.
And so I was just wondering if there had been any feedback from them as the time has gone on, they've gotten a little bit more mellow.
Right.
One would hope.
Could we get that sign moved into the transfer station that shows that between the, where we throw the mixed stuff, you can see the facility being built in the woods. That's the spot where everybody that goes in town would see that and understand the nature of it. In a residential area, it's a very inappropriate thing. I agree with those people over there. That sign does not belong over there in Carlton.
I can look into that.
I
right.
think it might be wise. And it will also help answer questions that people have. If you put it where they can read it, because nobody else goes up Carrollton. Maybe somebody was thinking of hiding the sign on Carrollton, it didn't make sense.
No, it wasn't intended to be hidden, and they're generally not. They're specifically for the public to see. That's what they're trying to convey.
And for the residents themselves,
Yeah.
there.
I think that's a great suggestion, Joe.
Mr. Jack, did you want to comment on anything of the upcoming Sea Oaks Betterman hearing?
Yes.
Yes, on Sea Oaks, the potential schedule would be February 16th at 6:30 here in this room. And if that's acceptable, all the documents are already ready to go, okay? We'd be able to take advantage of that and get them out by tomorrow, which means certified letter, registered mail, goes to every resident in that area, as did with Summerwood, where they are informed of the date, place, and time of the hearing, and what it is that the commission will be voting.
I would recommend that we keep it in the evening, as unlike our sewer commission schedule, just because there are people that at work will want to attend and maybe can't get out of work to come and do that.
Shouldn't that be a selectmen's meeting?
No. No, theirs are staggered to avoid the holiday.
Other questions on the Betterman hearing?
Yes, of course, I always have a question. I understand that there was an agenda that was put forward for it. Were we going to review that at all during this meeting?
I don't believe I have that.
That was,
Sea Oaks agenda?
For Summerwood.
it was for the Monday.
Monday is Summerwood,
So the Monday was
January
for-
30th,
Right.
here, 6:30.
That's the agenda.
That's Summerwood.
That's what I was saying, if we were going to review that at all today. Not Sea Oaks, Summerwood.
Oh, no, that'll all be done at the hearing.
Okay.
It had to be submitted to the town clerk by the end of the day today in order for that meeting to occur. I'm going to have to be at that meeting, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Other questions?
I will not be able to attend the meeting Monday.
Anyone else not be able to attend the Monday meeting?
Monday, the 30th at 6:30?
Yes, sir. All right, other questions and comments from our commissioners?
Yes, I have I'd like us to think about, this is dovetailing on what Joe had presented earlier. When we're talking about the direction of where we're going and what our time frame is, I'd like us to begin putting together a long-term plan, because there are things that are still up in the air. I thought that that was beautiful, that you presented that. And I think there are things that are up in the air. There were the change orders for phase number 2. Where are we going with that? what is the final decision for Phase 2? What are our goals and objectives as we move forward? You know, we can say clean water, that your slides are showing the benefit of us doing something dramatic and beautiful. I think we really need to keep moving forward, but we need to have a plan of moving forward so that everybody's aware of what it is. I thought that Catherine did a fabulous job on the frequently asked questions. I think people who have questions about the way you organized it, the installation and the cost, and I thought that was fabulous. And I think we're on a roll, and we need to keep moving forward, but I think we need to start to set an agenda of objectives and goals and timeframes so that we're working in concert and have an idea of where we're going. You're doing a wonderful, fabulous job with doing all that, and a lot of what you know would be nice if we can begin to get it out without tying ourselves to something that's unrealistic.
Yes, I agree.
So that would be, if we can start to look at agenda items that would kind of have a flow, not just for this meeting, but over several meetings, how will we accomplish that? The fact that Joe had raised the issue about, let's make sure that the select board knows about this information. Well, let's keep the information flowing between select board, whose agenda is clean water, discussed at every meeting, and the sewer commission. Remember how beautiful it was when so many of the commissions and the departments that had to do with water had come together. And I think that we can be, we can help to spearhead some discussions of bringing the different groups together, but if we have a direction and goals, objectives, and timeframes, I think we can help to move the clean water forward faster without just saying, without having people say, well, it's just in name only. Well, it's not. I think the progress that's being made is exciting. And I think it would be great to have people excited about it and not just complaining about what's going on.
Do you envision a permanent agenda item for a near and long-term projection?
Yes, I do. I do. Even if we do need to break it down, you know, in little segments as we go, as the meeting gets started. But if we have it as a part of the agenda, it forces us to do something and to have some preparation for it and some thoughts about it.
Get on board with that.
Fantastic.
I'd like to see it as an agenda item, too. I mean, that's the nature of the one thing that we can make a positive contribution. And that's to stay out in the future. We got enough people putting out fires and digging holes in the ground. For this present level, we got to get the rest of them all lined up and engineered out.
Thank you, because I think the more we're forward-thinking and the more we engage people who are going to be affected by it, I think the more they take a collective kind of breath of air and say, okay, because it's almost like, you can imagine people are thinking, there is a train coming, and I don't know whether I have to jump on board or whether I have to get out of the way, or what I'm supposed to do in the meantime. So I think, thinking of this, it's coming toward you, but you don't have to be fearful of it.
Speak.
If they, Board of Selectmen, select persons, excuse me, do want to see that report that you just gave us, there's no reason why that shouldn't become public information to keep the town informed where we are, what's happening. That answers far more than a multi-page, multi-paragraph statement of we're digging holes and laying pipes. It says, here's the 3 projects, and they're either on time or not on time, and here's the money we're spending.
This is televised and on YouTube. So this presentation that he just gave is on Mashpee TV and on YouTube for people to view at their leisure.
Yeah, but they don't know it either.
If you'd like, I can put it on the website, on the Sewer Commission website, too.
If you want to send it to me, I can submit it
Yeah.
in minutes as well.
Well, I'm just thinking that it's appropriate, but you ought to get the string from the town manager and the buy-in by the town manager and the select persons. See, I didn't say selectmen that time. There is hope for me.
Yes, sir.
Other questions and comments?
No, just a reminder that we need to get our anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policy papers read and signed. And then Susan volunteered that she'd take them up today, if we give them to her today, but let's not figure out where they're supposed. So you have to track them
today.
down.
I'm not.
You don't have any choice, so sign it and give it to Susan. A message.
And Susan, do you have the comments that were submitted at the last session, January?
Do I have
2nd?
what?
The written comments that were submitted by Mr. Klein and Mr. Barton?
The
from
written
the
comments?
The last session that we
Yeah,
had?
they're in the
The
minutes.
transcript, yeah.
Where is that?
She
I gave you the
distributed
minutes,
the
didn't I?
minutes.
I think she
No, I
means
don't-
the packet of
I want the
information.
packet that they
Oh,
submitted.
yeah. Yeah.
I thought that would be interesting to review more carefully, because they spoke awful quickly.
And there were some very good points in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some stuff I'm interested in
I don't
looking at.
have anything from Mr. Klein.
Mr. Barton, I think,
Yeah.
Mr. Barton.
I have
provided some
that stuff.
substantial information.
Chad, did you get what I sent you?
I did.
Do you have copies of that?
You can have them because I don't want to carry them around unless you guys want them.
Well, we should keep them in a,
Oh, you did?
I got
Oh,
a
okay.
packet.
You can have them.
I didn't get them, so I asked, and then they sent them to me by email.
All right, is there any other questions, comments from the commissioners or from people in the audience?
Motion to close.
Seconded.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I'd like to thank Susan Donovan, our secretary, Chris Ball at Mashpee TV, and everybody who came in attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Excellent.
Layout